Whew, it has been long, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Digvijay, and I would finally like to welcome you to the first edition of the Flutter Meetup of 2022, and one that has been 7 long months in the making. This is really exciting. I've not been here for such a long time, and it feels great to be back. Oh, I can't keep calm and why should I? Because we have such an amazing lineup of speakers coming your way, so many discussions that we have to do with you. But first and foremost, I know we are late and we did not get a chance to do this before, but better now than never. A very, very happy new year to all of our viewers, and also welcome to the live stream. I think we are still being joined by a couple of people. So you're more than welcome. Let your friends know that what we're doing here, and bring them on board with us. I hope this new year brings a lot of happiness and a lot of prosperity for all of you. That's my heartiest wish for you guys, and I hope it comes true. But right now, what we are really looking forward to is what's going on in Flutter. I mean, in all this time, Flutter has really grown by so much. The community itself has grown by so much, and there have been so many new things that have come up, and people all around the globe have been building brilliant new things, right? And of course, I personally think that a catch up was very, very necessary, and that's what we are doing here today. Before we begin, of course, this event is powered by Flutter BLR, the Flutter Bangalore Meetup Group, and Geeky Ants. So big shout out to them. And of course, once this event starts, of course, let everybody know in the world what we're doing. Remember to populate your Twitter feed, tweet about this event, tweet about our speakers and the topics that you like, things that you'd like to talk about, discuss, tag us, use the hashtag Flutter BLR, and yeah, let everybody know what we are doing here today. Uh, I think it's about time, right? I can't really wait because we have so many things to talk about and so many brilliant speakers that are coming your way to talk to you guys. Uh, so let's get on with the show. I mean, sit back, take a deep breath, and let's get this roller coaster going. So first off, just to let you know what we are doing here, what to expect out of this event, I'd like to bring on with me Rishabh Sharma. Uh, he is going to be delivering the keynote for you today and letting you know what you're doing here, what to expect out of this event, and what all different things await you. So, is Rishabh here with us?
Yes. Hello,
Very, very
Digvijay.
good
How are you?
afternoon, Rishabh. How are you
Yeah,
doing today?
very good afternoon. Yeah, I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm great, boy. It's an exciting afternoon, is it not?
Yeah. After a very long time, we are having this meetup finally.
I know, right? I've been waiting for this for so long, and it's so great to have all of the community members here again today. I mean, of course, it's sad that we are still doing it virtually. We'd love to do it in person, but I mean, make the best of what we can, right?
Yes.
Uh,
Absolutely.
so, Rishabh, I hear that you're a Flutter fanatic. You've been doing a lot of things in Flutter.
Yeah.
And well, for your information, ladies and gents, he is also the club treasurer and a part of the Toastmasters International Group in Chandigarh, in his hometown. And he also knows quite a bit about machine learning. So please do not build the next Skynet. I still have a lot to live for. uh, Wonderful, Sir Rishabh. What I'm going to do, I'll let you talk to our viewers
Yeah,
and
yeah.
let them know what we're doing here today.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the amazing words, Digvijay. So I'll just get started. Yeah. So hello everybody. So as you know, I'm Rishabh and I'm working with Geeky Ants as a software engineer. First of all, let me welcome all of you to this very first virtual remote meetup of 2021. Yeah, so let's just grab your coffees, welcome aboard, and let's just get started. So, as you all know, last year 2021 was a massive hit for Flutter. A lot of things came in. So, let me just give you a little recap of the same. So, first of all, as we know, null safety was a very big thing introduced last year with Flutter 2.0 and Dart 2.12 coming in. It made null safety actually made Flutter a very secure framework to work with now, though it had changed the how the way how we used to do code in Flutter, but I think it changed for good. And then we got the support for web, desktop, and all other platforms, which made Flutter a one-stop solution for all kinds of development and products. And obviously Flutter is getting more efficient day by day. So now what's new is happening in Flutter. So yes, so over the past few months we have seen a lot of support coming from the web3 community. a lot of packages are being published to support the compatibility of Flutter with Web3. Now, if we are talking in terms of, dApps, DeFi's, blockchain, crypto, NFTs, right? So everything just supports Flutter, and Flutter do the same for Web3. And it, I can say, the Web3 community has like accepted Flutter with open arms. And let's just talk about the versions. So Flutter 2.8 was launched recently with a lot many PRs merged and a lot many fixes. And yes, we got a full screen support for Android as well in Flutter 2.5. So, earlier you might have differentiated between a native Android application and a Flutter one, but if I ask you to do that now, well, I think you can't. And also, this was a very good thing. And then Google launched their GMA SGK in November. So, guys, what is GMA? So the SGK consists of Google Ad Manager and Google Ad Mob. So they unified both these things into this single SDK, so the developers and the users can be benefited from the both at the same time. And then also talking about the community now. So as Digvijay told, there have been massive increase in Flutter community worldwide. So you talk about any platform, Twitter Space, Clubhouse, a lot of tech events, meetups are happening worldwide. So you can say that people are just loving Flutter, like we love Flutter at Geeking Ants. Now I'll tell you what Geeking Ants is. So we are a product studio, and we like to build things in new technologies, and we have worked in so many products, and we have built amazing things with Flutter. So our love story with Flutter dates back to when Flutter was still in its beta stage. And yes, we are working with it since then, and we actually have seen the growth of Flutter, from being an infant technology to a very matured framework, which it is right now. And also at the same time, we always like to contribute to the open source. We always like to give back to the community. So these are some of the cool things which we did with Flutter over the past few years. We did it for the community and for the Flutter. So first of all, yeah, we have contributed to the Flutter official documentation, and we launched this Flutter starter kit, which will do all the boilerplate code and do the folder structuring for your production ready apps. And we have this Flutter Flick video player package published in PubDev. Go guys, just check them out. And we have Flutter Marketplace, where users can jump in and they can, get the custom ready themes done in Flutter, so people can, embed them in their applications. And currently we are doing a lot of experiments with the Web3, which revolves around Flutter. So we are doing all kinds of stuff, blockchain, cryptos. We are integrating it with Flutter. We are seeing the pros and cons. So we are just doing these things with Flutter. And yes, we post a lot of articles on Flutter on our blog. So viewers, if you want to see our blogs, so we have a publishing channel on Hashnode. You can always go to the hashnode.com, just search out for Geeky Ants and Flutter. You'll get a lot of articles, not just related to the Flutter, but the other technologies as well. Right. Now I will tell you about our line of speakers today. Okay, so first of all, our panel consists of Pushkar. He will be our first speaker for today, and he will deliver a talk on Flutter web routing, public and protected both ways. Then, followed by him, we have a talk by Aswin Gopinathan. He will deliver a talk on Dart as a backend. Then we will be having a talk on Flutter and dApps, and Shri Hriday will deliver it, some Web3 stuff. And then our last talk will be delivered by Majid, and he will guide us on how to build a progressive web application, aka PWA, with Flutter. So, as you have seen, we have an amazing line of speakers today, and something I want to convey to our viewers today. See, these are the kinds of topic, these are the kinds of discussions which you do not want to miss out. So, I just want you to stay for the till the end of this event. So, just stay tuned with us. Right now, I'll talk about our code of conduct for today. So that will be, do not use any hate speech and inappropriate comments. Just keep it light, be respectful, and refrain from strong words. And yes, don't spam your questions in the chat. You are always free to ask questions. Just post a question and we'll get back to you. And try to ask a, different variety of questions. Okay, and this is a space for growth and learning, so please promote that. and get to know your fellow attendees and speaker, network with them. So that was our code of conduct for today. Yeah, that's all from my side. Thanks. Enjoy the event. Now I rest my case. Over to you, Digvijay.
Well, you call me and I'm here, Rishabh. That was an amazing, amazing introduction for the event. Thank you so much. I think Rishabh has touched up on all points and everything that you can expect out of this event today. So, Rishabh, thank you for that. I would
Yeah,
love to see you again towards the end of the event. So, do stick
yeah,
around
sure.
and we'll talk
Yeah,
again surely.
sure.
Thank you. All right, guys. So that was Rishabh, and he has apparently done a brilliant job of letting you guys know, letting everyone, all of us know what's coming up next. So without further ado, I don't think anybody wants to wait, and we shouldn't. So let me take the pleasure of introducing our very first speaker of the day, uh, Pushkar Kumar. He is going to be talking about Flutter web routing, both in public and protected routes. Let me bring Pushkar on with us. There he is. Hello, Pushkar.
Yeah, hi Digvijay.
It has been a long, long time since we have met, obviously, but a long time that we have gotten to speak as well. I remember the last time you delivered the keynote for us, didn't you?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that. Well, it's very good to see you again. That's for sure. Ladies and gentlemen, Pushkar Kumar here at Geeky Ants is a Flutter fanatic in their purest form, right? He loves backend and front end, and he personally has taken Flutter to absolutely new heights at Geeky Ants. I mean, with his experiments and the things that he keeps on doing with Flutter, it's amazing. It blows your mind if you get to see them because of his constant need to tinker with things and build beautiful artifacts out of it. I think, if I like to put it that way. Plus, I've known him for a long time, and I know for a fact that he's an extremely solutions oriented guy, right? If it's his problem or anybody else's, this guy is the one to go for, uh, go to, and that's excellent, right? So, Pushkar, with that, I guess I'll leave you with our viewers and take it away.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Digvijay. Thank you, Rishabh, for the keynote. Um, so, welcome everyone. I am Pushkar. I am a tech lead at Geekians. As Rishabh mentioned, there are a lot of exciting things happening in the Flutter space. Um, Things like decentralized applications and Web3. And then Flutter also went into stable web last year. And one of the reasons I selected this particular topic, Flutter Navigator 2.0, was because once Flutter went into the web stable, a lot of people started exploring the web development. And one of the initial blockers or bottlenecks that everyone encountered was basically the web behavior, right? So, I mean, the web would not feel like web, and especially with respect to navigation, the Navigator 1.0 that we already had was not good enough to cater all the cases, because you would not want screens to be pushed and popped when you're using say a web application, right? So that's why Flutter team came up with Navigator 2.0. But in my experience, this has been one of the most controversial APIs that I have ever worked with, right? I mean, people were they were open GitHub threads that where people were complaining that this is too difficult to understand. And there were like a lot of people who just gave up on Navigator 2.0. And at the same time, I, as a tech lead, started exploring Navigator 2.0, understanding what exactly is the purpose behind which the Flutter team has created this API. And once I started exploring it, I realized that it is more Flutterish than what Navigator 1.0 would provide. What I will do today is basically I will be explaining how the Navigator 2.0 works. Also, what we'll do is we'll have a very basic application where we'll have a public route and a protected route, and then within that protected route we'll have sub routes. So it is typically inspired by, say, how Twitter functions. So you log in, go into the home page, and then you can switch in between the profile settings and notification and other sub routes, right? So we'll try to create something like that. And also I will be sharing a very extensive Flutter web project that we are working on. It's again a game which is based on blockchain, but it needs Flutter Navigator 2.0 very extensively. So let's get started. So the first question is like, why Navigator 2.0? Why did the Flutter team introduce Navigator 2.0 when we already have the Navigator 1.0, right? So one of the main reason behind that was that Navigator 1.0 is more of like an imperative API, whereas the Navigator 2.0 is a declarative one. Now, what is the difference between an imperative and a declarative would be? In the case of an imperative, we basically go ahead and define, say, a set of code and a set of instruction, and we say, okay, the 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 computer has to go ahead and basically execute it in sequence, right? Whereas, as the name suggests, the declarative API, what the benefit of having a declarative API is basically we define and we declare what exactly we need, and then we process that information out of some result, right? So that's what the declarative API would is. And Navigator 2.0 is also based on the declarative API. One of the main reasons for that was that it had to support the web navigations, right? Because when we are having a mobile application, we control what is to be pushed and what is to be powered, but that doesn't work in web, because a user can go ahead and can manipulate the params that we have in the URL, and also there are more complications comes into web, like a web browser history and whatnot, right? So declarative API, and as I mentioned, that because of the declaration, we have like clear separation of concerns, and we can make decision making at a time when we are processing those information. And again, one of the other advantages is that like for deep linking, like suppose if you have to land users into a particular page when you are routed to the application from any of the external browsers. So that is also one place where the Navigator 2.0 really comes into handy. So what we'll do is we'll first understand its key concepts, right? I will not go into a detail and explaining all the classes that it has, but the key concept of how exactly it works. So what I would like to emphasize on is basically three important parts, right? One is the operating system, which can be a mobile or which can be a web, right? Now, in mobile and the web, the routing basically works different, but what you have to understand is that one important say stakeholder here is the operating system, and then there are two important classes. One is the router delegate and the router. Now this router is a special type of a class that was introduced with Navigation 2.0 to cater all these declarative form of routing that we will be encountering right now. So I mean, just to go through the flow, so we'll have an operating system, and then what happens is this operating system basically provides information to the route information provider. I mean, route information provider might not be a very important concept here. We can directly skip to the information parser, but what it does is that once your app is getting booted, you either get a initial route or you get a new intent, right? And the route information parser, what it does is it takes that information, and basically, as the name suggests, parser, right? So it takes that information and parses that. So what it means by parsing is that it gets an information, say a route like a product, and say /ID is equal to something, right? So the route information parser is the class where we take the routes and then we parse it based on whatever the URL we have got. After parsing, what happens is that the route delegate takes that information in, and then it has basically three override methods that we'll just discuss. And it basically what it does is that through the navigator class, it tries to create a history of all the stacks and the substacks within a stack, and cater to our browser history as far as the web part is concerned. And then there's a router class, which is again at the material level. So every time, suppose if there is a change in the router delegate, the app states gets updated, or we change the router through an intent in the app, and then the router gets rebuilt, it gets configured, and again the app state changes. So this is like the overall main concept that we have. So what we'll do is we'll basically look into a working example. So it's a very simple example. One is that we'll have a public route, which is login. Obviously, login is for everyone. And then after login, we'll have a home screen. And then within that home screen, we'll have things like profile, settings, more, not found, and then there will be like further sub routes, right? So more slash something, and we need to cater on those informations as well. So let's go quickly to the code. As I mentioned, we'll primarily have two screens. One is the login screen and the home screen. So there is nothing very specific as far as the screens are concerned. It's just like one is the login screen and the home screen. So what we'll focus more on would be the route methods, right? So what we'll do is we'll start from the app.dart, and there, as I mentioned, the first class comes into picture. So instead of directly using the material app, what we do is we use material app.router, right? So what it does is this router is basically the first layer of information that we'll have. So router basically has a lot of extended props within it, where it gives a lot of flexibility, but what we will focus primarily would be on router delegate and the route information parser. Now, if we'll go back to the previous key concept diagram, you see as the app is being booted, we get the route information, and then we basically pass that information. And that's exactly what the route information parser is going to do for us, right? So this is the first class that we have. Here, as it mentions that this custom class basically extends to the route information parser itself, which basically takes a generic type T, which is the route path. Now, route path is nothing but basically the route strategy that we'll have. It defines the path structure for us, right? So what we need in the route path is basically a path name and whether or not that path is known to us. So suppose if a path is not known to us, then what exactly we are going to do in that case. So this is particularly the method where it takes that parse information route, it takes that information, and then based on your business use case, it goes ahead and it parses that, right? And what it does is after parsing, it refines that information and creates a path name, right? And this is where the router delegate is coming into picture, right? So let's go to the router delegate then. What router delegate does is basically it takes the information, right? And then basically it has that responsibility of setting in not just the initial route, but also any further routes that we'll have. That is also what the router delegate will be doing, right? So within that router delegate, we have a lot of different type of override methods. What majorly we are concerned about is the current configuration, and the other one is the set new route path. So the current configuration, what it does is that it takes that configuration and analyze whether or not this particular set of route, whatever route we have got, is it a valid route or not. And then the set new route path, as it suggests, that it takes that information and sets the route in that navigator class that we have. So navigator class is nothing but basically it takes that it keeps track of all the routes that we'll have and maintain a stack based history of the child widgets, right? So this is overall what we have. And then there are other like subclasses as well, such as like a back button dispatcher and a transition delegate, but those are basically a part of the app router delegate itself, right? So we have a transition delegate class as well, but it isn't as specific that we have. So what we have right now is basically a login screen. So let me take you to the application. So this is what our web would look like. So we'll have a very simple login. So we'll go ahead and maybe like I will enter my name and then the password. And what will happen is when I log in, then it will take me to the home screen. Now this is a dummy screen that I have created basically in order to cater the sub navigation. So by default, we land onto the home page. And then if I click on the profile, so it takes you to the profile settings and the more. But not only it does that, it is also ensuring that it does not have that push and the pop effect that we usually have in the Navigator 1.0, right? So, and the another important part, which is basically the browser history. So suppose if I am on more and I go to the home, and if I click back, I again come into the more screen, right? So it ensures that our entire browser history is maintained, but also at the same time ensuring that we do not have unnecessary transition rebuilding the page again and again. Not only it does that, but also through the through the route handler that we have created, we have clearly defined on the different route structure. So in our case, we'll have a not found where we do not know what route. Basically, it's an unknown route, and then we have basically the known routes, and then we have a basic singleton class called as a route handler, which takes the route, and then based on whatever the information we get, they go ahead and they render that information out, right? So basically, based on profile, it is going to re-render, like render the profile widget, and similarly based on settings, it will do that. Now let's look into whether or not it will directly land me onto the settings screen, right? So if I go ahead, since I am already a logged in user, so what it will do is it will directly take me, it will take that decision. So basically that decision of basically checking whether to take them to the public route or the private route will be done by the router delegate itself. So it took me directly to the settings screen, and then I can simply go back and there is no browser history at all. So this is one of the extended features. Also, another important point is, suppose what happens if the user goes ahead and try to go into the login screen, right? Ideally, it should not take us to the login screen. So, but if I go ahead and click it, it will ensure that it does not take the user to the login screen. Why? Because I am already a logged in user. So what it did is by default, it is taking user to the home screen, and that is what you expect it to be like. Another point is, suppose if I log out and then if I want to go ahead with the home screen, should it take you to the home screen? It won't, right? Because again, the router delegate took that decision that the user is not authenticated yet, and we cannot set on the route to home, rather take user to the login screen, right? So this is where the advantages of the Navigator 2.0 comes into picture, because since it's a declarative style of an API, we can basically have a declaration and then process that information at a time when we have to, right? So here, based on our declaration, we have a clause that if I am logged in, I can't go into the inner side of the application. So yeah, so this is the one. Other than that, I also wanted to share one very extensive project that we are doing internally. It's a blockchain based game, completely made in Flutter, and it is potentially one of the most complex web projects out there in the market. So let's go through that particular app as well. I will also share that link, so you can go ahead, you can test those application and have a proper feedback around that. So this is basically a blockchain game completely made out of Flutter, and it's basically the game is called as a soccer manager. So it's basically, you can go ahead, you can trade players in and out. But what it does is it handles and it uses Web Navigator 2.0 very very extensively, to an extent that that I can directly go to a particular club. So for example, club 77. So what I want to do is basically I want to see the information here about the club 77, right? So I can directly land in here. Also, we have shareable links, right? So not only we have the basic application where everything is basically a shareable link. For example, this player, or this isn't a player, but this is a club. So let's go to maybe a player. So a player called as, say, this. Now this is basically a shareable link. So I can basically, through the declarative style of the Navigator 2.0, I can take the decision of how and where take the users in. So here in this case, I directly landed into the player screen, and similarly the sub navigation as we usually have, the matches, the league table, and with the game world. And if I go back, I can directly land into the matches, right? So it's currently under development, but it's a blockchain based decentralized app for basically it is based out on the Ethereum network. So do check this out as well. Other than that, I have also updated important resource link. I have already open sourced the Navigator 2.0 project that we just discussed here. So you can go ahead, you can check that out and do share your feedback. Other than that, I've also updated the app link, and there are some important links that I basically took as a reference in order to go through the Navigator 2.0 and understand the concepts. So you can check that out. Thank you. That's it from my side.
Hi again, Pushkar. That was amazing. And I think all of our viewers also agree to that. We do have a couple of questions that have come your way during
Yeah,
this
sure.
talk. So we'll just
Okay,
bring
sure.
those questions to you. Uh, so Dishank wants to ask that packages like Beamer and Auto Router Pack are built to make our lives easier, right? Because the
Yes.
implementation is same if we are making any type of production app. So besides
Yes.
learning the working of Navigator 2.0, is there anything productive that comes out of it?
Yes, it does. I have explored Go Router and Beamer both, right? And they come up with their own set of limitations, right? Because they are also built on top of the Navigator 2.0 itself. So, what I felt in the initial days that if we go about and have like complete hold of the Navigator 2.0 API, then it really helps us out and it makes our life much more easier. I mean, I know Navigator 2.0 is a difficult API to understand, but Beamer, or even if you're using Go Router, there are a lot of edge cases around there, right? There are a lot of open issues around there that you have to cater. There are specific reasons that we had to get rid of Beamer and Go Router and move to the Navigator 2.0.
Hmm.
It might happen that in cases of a very simple application, you can have the Beamer and all. But as I mentioned, in our case, the requirement was very extensive, and I thought that it's important we get the control of the API rather than depending on the external packages.
Right. Awesome. Awesome. So I hope that answers the question, Dishank. Srinath has another question for you, Pushkar. He wants to ask whether Navigator 2.0 requires more boilerplate code for routing than Navigator 1.0.
Yes, it does, right? It does, and that's why it is built like that. As I mentioned, that it is a declarative API where it also gives you more control, right? So it's different from the Navigator 1.0 that we traditionally use, where you define a set of instructions and basically, the computer has to execute that. Here,
Hmm.
we define the declaration and then we process it at the time of, whenever the result has to be processed. So as I
Hmm.
mentioned, in case of very complex applications like as I just explained, something like an Amazon, you cannot go ahead and do it through Navigator 1.0, right? So if we have to
Hmm.
take Flutter Web seriously, then Navigator 2.0 has to be taken into the consideration because Navigator 1.0 has a lot of limitations at this point.
Right, right. Well, I hope that answers your question, Srinath, and gives you the push you need to explore 2.0 even more. Uh, Shashank has another question. He wants to ask if it's fine to use Navigator 2.0 for Flutter apps that run both on mobile and as a normal Flutter app and web.
Yes, yes, definitely yes. And we have been doing it. So the product and the link that I just shared, we are basically running it everywhere. So it is running on web, running on desktop, and also we are running it on mobile. The reason is that the exchange gap and decentralized application, people have to come to the web, right? So that's why I mean the web is the main factor here, but
Hmm.
the same code base has already been deployed to the mobile as well. So yeah, I mean, you can definitely go ahead. As I mentioned, there is something called the transition delegate where you can control how the transition should be. In our case, what we have done is we have specifically controlled the transition of how it transitions on web and mobile separately. Right. So as I just mentioned, I mean, you would not want screens to be pushed and popped on web. I mean, it feels really weird, right? So in that case, Navigator 2.0 that I just explained is the go-to solution at this point.
Wonderful. Great. I think, Shashank, that would probably answer your question. And yes, you can use Navigator 2.0 for any app on whatever platform you want to run it on. Great. So that's all the time we have for the questions at this time, Pushkar. So thank you so much for sharing what you've done with Navigator 2.0. And I hope I can see that a lot of people are going to want to use this and migrate to it. So wonderful job done there. And of course, I'll see you again towards the end of the event. So see you
Yes,
then.
sure. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right, folks. So that was Pushkar, and he talked about Navigator 2.0 and some of the awesome things that he has done and that awesome blockchain based gaming app that he built. Looked pretty awesome, didn't it? Uh, I have to say, it is wonderful to see all of you guys just talking in the chat and communicating, and that is what we want to happen, right? We want you guys to communicate, network, and talk to each other and get to know and talk about all things Flutter, share knowledge and all that. And it is absolutely wonderful to see that you guys are talking about it, talking about things, getting to know each other. And this is the kind of things that we want to promote, and we cannot do it without you guys. So a big thank you to all of our viewers online. But it's time to move on to our next speaker for the day, Ashwin Gopinath. I'd like to have him here with me. Think we are live with Ashwin.
Yeah, hi
There he is.
there.
Hi. Very,
Hi.
very good afternoon. How are you doing
Good
today?
afternoon too. I'm doing really great. Wow, how about you?
I'm doing wonderful. It's a rather lazy weather out here today. There's no sun. It's raining, but that isn't stopping the excitement levels here. You know, so that is just great. Is
Great.
Ashwin still with us? Ashwin is still
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
Oh yeah,
sorry.
there you
Yeah,
are.
some network issue. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. I can see you again. Anyhow, so folks, Ashwin is a software engineer right now at Accenture, but other than that, he is on a mission to use Dart as a backend and find some use case out of it, and he just wants to do that. What's most amazing about Ashwin is that he is an ambassador of Flutter Canada, if I'm not wrong,
Yeah, yeah,
and
absolutely.
and he is also secretly training to be a Hokage, if you know what that is. So I don't know, how is your training going so far?
Yeah,
Are you the
absolutely.
village head yet?
It's going really good.
Yep. All right. Great. He is also a former mentor in the Linux and Unix users group in Bangalore, and he loves contributing to the OSS community and loves doing open source. So I'd let Ashwin tell you everything about that and about his talk today, which is using Dart as a backend. So Ashwin, I'll leave you guys with our viewers and take it away.
Thank you so much, Digvijay. So, yeah, let me. Okay. So, as Digvijay told, my name is Ashwin Gobinathan. I'm a software engineer at. I know it's a Saturday morning, and you might all be like lying on your bed, right? It's a lazy Monday. I mean, Saturday morning. And yeah, even I was in my bed actually an hour ago, but I had to get up and come over here. So, in the next 15 minutes, you're going to learn about Dartfire. So, you all might be familiar with Flutterfire, right? So, it's just a name given to Firebase integration for Flutter application. So, what is this Dartfire then? It's simple. It's a Firebase integration for your Dart application. Okay, now you're confused. Isn't Flutter also a Dart application? Absolutely, it is. But let me show you an example. Let me open IntelliJ and I'll create a new project. So, what we all do is we click on the Flutter option over here and then we go Dart over here, which actually provides template for 5 applications built using pure Dart. There's no Flutter code in that. I mean, there's no framework code over there, just pure native Dart. So the applications are simple console applications, then not so simple console applications, Dart packages, web servers, and barebone web app. So this is what I call a Dart application. Flutter is also a Dart application, I understand, but this is just native Dart application. So in this session, you're going to learn about Firebase integration for these Dart applications. So before you start with that, I want to explain you a concept which I have been exploring recently. It is Dart as a backend. So, as the name suggests, you can use Dart as a backend language. Let's see what are the popular backend languages. We have Python, we have PHP, we have Java, we have Go, then there are like Ruby on Rails and the list goes on. But we're going to add Dart to this list as well. So this is the concept behind Dart as a backend. I've been personally using Dart for many of my backend services, and I can really endorse Dart for as a backend language. Now, what if I say you can build the following using Dart? If you want to like build custom APIs for a project, imagine you went to a hackathon and you're just a Flutter developer. You just know how to write beautiful Flutter applications, but you need some APIs for a project, and you cannot use external APIs. So what will you do in that case? You're going to build custom APIs using Dart. Second use case, you can create a Twitter bot that retweets the hashtag Dart as a backend. Or you can create a Discord bot for your Discord server that greets new members to a server. And the list goes on and on and on. And it's like you can literally use Dart for many of your backend services. But But where does Firebase come in the picture? So remember how you used to integrate Firebase with the Flutter applications? You go to Firebase console, you create new projects, right? So this is something you might have come across while creating Firebase projects for your Android as well as iOS apps. So what was the end product for for this screen? It was two files, that is Google Services.json file for Android and Google Services info.plist file for iOS. But what do we do for pure Dart application? There's no project for pure Dart, right? If you go to Firebase console, you might see applications for Android, iOS, and web. What do you do for pure Dart application? For that, we use. Let me show you the package. So this is the package that we'll be using for integrating Firebase in our Dart application. So, as the documentation says, it's a pure Dart implementation of the Firebase client. So, currently, it supports only three of the functionalities: authentication, real-time database, and cloud storage. So, this is how you're gonna integrate Firebase in your Dart application. So, let's see an example. I'll be creating a basic web server. Let me name it Firebase demo. Everything is perfect. Let's finish. So this is a server template code which the application generates for you. If you want to know how this works, I have written some couple of articles on how you can get started with Dart server and building APIs. So it's very simple. If you're a beginner to Dart, this is something you can actually get started with for backend services. So for now, let's integrate our Firebase Dart application. So I'll be copying this version. Let's go to pubspec.yaml file, pubget. Okay, so it's added. Now let's go to server.dart file. So as you all know, in Flutter application, the entry point will be the main.dart file in the lib folder. Similarly, in Dart application, the entry point is for specifically Dart server application, the entry point is server.dart file inside the bin folder. And obviously, you know what is void main, right? This is where the entire magic is happening in Dart. So now let's read the documentation what it says. Obviously, you have to write the import statement, right? So let's write the import. It's Firebase Dart. Okay, let's choose which one to go ahead. Go with the basic Firebase Dart. Yeah, all right. So before you start integrating Firebase to your application, the first thing you have to do is set up the Firebase instance in your application. So for that, we write this particular step. So it should always be at the initial point when you start running the program. So our entry point will be the void main function. So we write here, we just paste it over here. We can remove this part because we don't need any caching as of now. So we'll just remove this entire part. So this will actually do the trick for us. So just run the application. So it hosted on localhost 8080. Let me open that. Yeah. So this is how a basic Dart server application works using the template code. But now let's do one thing. Let me create a new Firebase application. As per the documentation, what it says is that you need the API keys and every credentials you get from Firebase in order to initialize Firebase in your application. So for that, let's go to console. I have a demo project over here. In order to get the credential, one easy way is to click on Add App, go to Web, just give some random name here. Let's say demo. Don't have to create the application, just click on demo and press register. Now you will be able to get all the credentials you need for your data application. So just copy this entire code, then you can just cancel this setup. Here, let's create a new class. Let's name it dot file. Let's create a new class config. I'm gonna paste it over here. So I have to use, yeah, sorry. This is just basic JSON syntax. Okay. Now we need to remove this double quote so that the lint doesn't give me any errors. So I'll just use regex and yeah, replace all. Perfect. Yeah. So the configurations are ready. Now let's see the documentation, like what we have to do next. So in order to initialize a fire, so let's do one thing. Shall we write it? So this is what echoes the entire output to your console that you are actually seeing when you run the application. Just a minute. So let me tell you a brief about how this works. So let's say this is the API that is running. If I type something like slash Ashwin, it's gonna return Ashwin over here. So this is what's happening over here. Whatever you send in the link, that is the URL, it's gonna get stored in the variable request.url and it's gonna be echoed to the screen. And this, I mean, obviously we know that the server request and we respond. I mean, we request and the server responds with the output, right? So the response will be of type OK. OK means 200, right? The status code 200. So OK will return a text which will have request for whatever we send in the link. So let's do one thing. Let's write the configuration code over here. I forgot. Yeah, I copied it. Let's paste it over here. Wait, I need to use async json.decode. Yeah. So what happens over here is that we are initializing using the configuration data we are stored over here. We have stored over here. So, but here it's randomly coming from somewhere. Just remove. Let's remove this part. We'll write here config dot. I think I didn't import it. Yeah, config dot. What was it? Firebase. Firebase config. Sorry, Firebase config. So this is gonna something I missed out, I guess. Yeah. So this is gonna initialize the entire Firebase app using the configuration here. All right. Now this is gonna return an error because we need to use future. Perfect. Let's run this app. Let's make sure that there's no errors. Okay, it's working perfectly. Great. Now let's integrate our real-time database in this. So as you can scroll down, you can find some code for real-time database. Yep. So this will create an object of type Firebase database, which will take as input the initialized Firebase application. So once that is ready, let's write something. We need to pass the DB URL, right? So for that, let's go to Firebase. Let's create. It's not Fire. It's real-time database. Sorry. So I already have some data, I guess. Yeah, some random data I have. I'll just copy the DB URL. Let's go to configuration. Over here, let's add, no, not here, static const, let's say db URL. We pasted the db URL over here. Get the same. Let's just a minute. Yeah, we need to pass it over here itself. That is database URL equal to config.db URL. So what we did is we copied the database URL, we pasted in our configuration file. We use a static file so that we can directly access without creating an object for the class. Then we are accessing that URL in the Firebase database object, so that we are telling the the compiler that we are using this particular Firebase app, and we are using the database URL that is provided for this particular application. So once that is done, we can write code for printing whatever it's there in the database. For that we use something like, we need to first reference dot child. So the first child is characters over here. So we write here characters, then once dot then. Now we're just gonna print the value whatever was there. Print value dot value. So it's gonna return some, okay, linting issues. I think we have to write await. Yeah. Sorry for that. Yeah, okay. So let's rerun the application. So I'm gonna open 8080 again. Everything ran properly, and let's check over here. So this is the output that we got. So this is actually fetched from the database over here. Just a minute. So the database contains Gunther 34, and the same data was retrieved over here. This is how you connect Firebase database in your application. So apart from real-time database, you can actually connect cloud storage. You can actually even perform authentication as well. So if you're building an application that contains some authentication for users, I mean, if you're building some APIs that require authentication, you can integrate Firebase authentication for that. Then you can use real-time database for your CRUD operations like create, read, update, and delete. So this is basically how Firebase Dart lets us, just a minute. Firebase Dart lets us integrate Firebase in our Dart application. I mean, um, wasn't that really amazing? Like, this one actually catch for Firebase Dart package. You can literally use more than one Firebase project for a Dart application. I know, I know you can use the same for Flutter apps as well, but when it comes to integrating multiple Firebase projects for a Dart app, it makes really the integration really easy for us. That's one amazing thing like that I like about Firebase Dart. That's actually the end of this session. So if you would like to connect with me for further, I mean, if you want to know further about Dartfire, or if you would like to know about Dart as a backend, you can connect with me on Twitter. Or if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Practical Dev, or somewhere else, you can just Google search my name, and you can just redirect to those links. So yeah, that's basically from my side. Thank you so much.
Hello again, Ashwin.
Yeah, hi there,
That was
Digvijay.
a brilliant talk. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you so
While you
much.
were delivering awesomeness, we had a couple of questions come in from the chat for you. So Tajammul wants to ask if there is any framework like Spring or Django for developing REST APIs that you know of.
Okay. So for Dart, we have a framework called Shelf. That's actually being developed and maintained by the official Dart team from Google. Apart from Shelf, there are so many frameworks such as I think Conduit, then
Mhm.
Jaguar, then Alfred, and there are many more. So yeah, there are a lot of frameworks out there.
Right. Well, Tajammul, you are spoiled for choice now. So go ahead, check them out, see what suits you, and well, no other reason but to get started. Uh, Right. So Oshinovo has a question for you, and he's asking, can Dart work as a server language with MySQL instead of using
Absolutely.
Firebase or an API?
Absolutely, you can. There are actually MySQL integrations for Dart, and if you want to run Dart on the server, like if you want to upload Dart code to Cloud Run, that is actually Google Cloud Run has support for Dart language in their list of languages supported. So you can literally run Dart on the server as well.
Right. Wonderful. I think Neeraj also had a similar question, and I think this has probably answered that. He was asking about MySQL support for Dart, but I think we have
Mhm.
covered that already. Uh, right. So Sumanta just asked a question. He says, "Is there any way we can get rid of the hierarchy hell of dark in Flutter? It is extremely difficult to understand and modify dark UI compared to Android native or React native."
Is it Dart or dark?
Uh,
Is it-
Well, he says that he wants to get rid of the hierarchy in Dart UI. I think
Dart
there was a
UI.
misspell. Yeah,
Okay, okay.
Dart in Flutter. Yeah. So he says that it's extremely difficult to understand and modify Dart UI compared to Android native or React native. So is there any way to get rid of the hierarchy?
That is actually, I mean, that's something that I'm really not sure about that. So I think our future speakers can give a better insight regarding that.
Hmm. Hmm. Great. Right. So we can obviously pick this question up later then.
Yeah,
And that's all the questions we have, Ashwin, for you at the moment. So thank you
great.
so much for sharing whatever you have been doing, in Flutter, and of course sharing this awesome project that you've also been working on.
Thank
I
you
would
so
love
much.
to have
Yeah,
a chat with you again towards the end of the session. So do stick around, and I will see
absolutely.
you again very soon.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks a lot, Ashwin.
Bye.
All right, folks, that was Ashwin, and he has been talking about a lot of things, predominantly using Flutter, using Dart as a backend language, and Firebase and integrations, and uh, amazing things, that you should really go ahead and try. Uh, Obviously, if you are having fun at the event, if you are learning a lot from these talks, do let everybody else know about it. Remember to tweet about the event, about our speakers, and what you are learning from them. Use the hashtag FlutterBLR, and do populate the feed, and let everybody know what's going on here so that they can also join in on the fun. Uh, well, I can tell you this, that the event bonanza doesn't end here. Next week, next Saturday, on this very channel, on the Geeky Ants YouTube channel, we are hosting our very first design oriented meetup. Right, we've never done it before. It's the first of its kind, and we'll be doing it right here next week. This is an event for the designer in you. So I mean, we are excited, and so are our speakers. If you don't believe me, you can have a look at it yourself. We have a small video for you.
Hi, my name is Tanisha.
I am Proben.
I'm Megha.
I'm Gati, and I'm happy to announce our
First ever design meetup happening on
29th of January
an initiative to build a
better community involving designers.
from all around.
I'm going to talk about the importance of design system, when it is important, why it is important, and how it is going to help us in our different stages of design and development processes.
We would be talking about how to approach and manage a design system that is ever evolving.
I, as a speaker, will speak about how a design system is created using atomic methodology.
I'd be talking what are design systems, what does design system include, and much more.
Join us.
And be a part of
The most interesting design event.
See you there. Bye.
And that was it. Tune in to understand and learn about all the nuances of design and have artistic conversations with the community of design as well. We are really hoping to see you next week, and hopefully it'll be a blast. But onwards to the next speaker, I would like to introduce our next speaker to you guys. He is Sri Hriday Bhagwat, and he'll be talking about Flutter and dApps. Is Sri Hriday with us? There he is.
Hey, hi.
Hi, Shrey. Questions. Yep, there you are. Questions. Do you prefer Shrey or do you prefer a more informal Shri?
Shri is preferable for me. Yep.
Shri is preferable. See, I knew I was going wrong somewhere.
Yes.
Anyway, so Shri, welcome to the event. Thank you so much for being here. It is. We are
Thank
absolutely
you.
stoked
Thank you for
to have
calling
you
me
here,
here.
guys. Shri here is the founder of Codemy, which is his own
Yes.
venture. He
Yes.
develops mobile apps and web apps and software solutions, digital solutions for
Yes.
people all around the globe. But by passion, he is a public speaker. He's a huge Flutter enthusiast, which is also one of the reasons why he's here, and is a trainer who is also on a mission to teach a million kids how to code. How's that going so far for
Yes.
you?
It's going very nicely. I've been taking online classes as well and teaching in person also to the people. They are coming in contact with me. So it's going very nicely.
That is wonderful to know. That is wonderful to know. It's one of the most brilliant things that you could do for the community out there is to
I
have an
actually feel
active part
education
in
should be
growing it,
free.
right?
Yes.
Wonderful. So he's also a Flutter consultant, and you should see his videos on YouTube and Ray Wenderlich. He makes these awesome videos on things that you really want to know about being a Flutter dev. So do check them out. And I just let Shri tell you everything else about himself. So Shri, I'll leave you
Yes.
with the viewers. Have a blast.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So I guess my screen is sharing over here. So my today's topic is Flutter and Web3. We will be creating D apps example like applications which are decentralized applications. Okay. So before going on to the topic, we should know who is presenting you. So my name is Shri Bhagwan, and Vijay has given a very nice introduction about me. I don't think anyone can surpass that intro. But here are some of my socials that you can see. You can follow me on Twitter, on Medium, and on Codemy on YouTube channel where you can read my articles and watch my videos. And I just love to share about my knowledge that I've gained from this community. So let's begin ahead without taking much time. So, what we will be learning, or what I will be talking about, a short introduction to Web 1 and Web 2 before jumping to Web 3, then an introduction to Web 3 and why we need Web 3, what are the apps, what will we be building, setting up the environment and introduction to the environment, smart contracts and Solidity, linking smart contracts with Flutter, and creating kick-ass Flutter apps. And going with the flow, how to be on Shark Tank to get funds for our project, because that is very much important currently with the trend going on. So let's get started. Now, what is Web 1? Web 1 meant a simple website when it was created long time ago. Not much design, only text, one-sided communication where the users used to surf on Web 1 were only able to receive the information. They were not able to send information or transfer the information. So it was just a one-way communication from internet to our computers or mobile phones or wherever we were using our web. As time went, the Web 1 evolved into Web 2, and it was a new, what we say, a new wormhole into the web area. So the Web 2 increased the functionality. Internet users could now post images and videos on the internet. Social media and e-commerce bloomed. Okay, there was new way of interacting with web. Now we see Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, even this online conference that we are having right now. I'm posting my screen and my live video from here, and you guys are able to watch it. So this was all possible because of Web 2, and Web 2 was a huge leap from Web 1 to Web 2. Now, if Web 2 is so good and so nice and everything is happening so globally nicely, then why do we need Web 3, right? So there were some problems with Web 2. The data gets stored in company owned servers. For example, there is a server which hosts all the data. So whenever we see that data has to be stored somewhere. So these companies could use that data which was stored in their server, which we host or which we post. For example, when you're posting images on Facebook, that image or that video is stored somewhere. Now, no matter how much they say it's encrypted, we as developers, we know how the backend works. And if someone wants to, they can actually deep dive into the backend and they can retrieve the information. For example, the moment when we share something on Amazon, you see that ads everywhere on Google. So you can see a small clip on the right, wherever I go, I see his face. Yeah, that is true. That was happening in Web 2. and the companies, they were putting all dominance over other companies. But that was a small part. The major drawback was this company, they understood that they can alter our situation, they can alter our mindset, and they can provoke people. So that was the thing that happened before, and that's why Mark Zuckerberg was called in by lawyers and the syndicate team. That was some of the problems with Web 2. And this is where Web3 comes to our rescue. So Web3 is decentralized, meaning there is no central system, okay, or there is no one system which will control the entire internet. It is powered by blockchain, hence a dominance over internet. Everyone is free over there. Difficult to track user activities and internet footprints. Like we all know, the bloom of Bitcoin exposed how blockchain work, and people were exposed to the working of blockchain, and they were intrigued by blockchain, which was that it doesn't leave any footprints, and we could just go on, and the reverse tracking is very difficult. So we use this blockchain, which is very hard and impossible to change the record. So once the record is done, is it stays over there. Okay. So if you want some links, we will provide in the description. Also at the end of topic, I will give you some links which you can refer to about blockchain. Now, what are DApps? DApp is an acronym of decentralized application and not dope apps. To be honest, when I read DApps at the start, I was like, someone just came up with dope app kind of term, but my mistake. So just want to clear that it is not dope app, but DApps, meant to run on decentralized computing system like blockchain. It was first introduced by Ethereum blockchain, which is built using smart contracts. So what we will do is we will create some smart contracts that we will track and monitor our account. Okay. So what we will be building? We will be building a to-do app. We will be using Solidity to write smart contracts and Flutter Web3 Dart package. Then we will be using Truffle for developing smart contracts locally. The Gnash is a nice library toolkit that provides a local environment of blockchain, Ethereum blockchain, and again Flutter to build the front end, because Flutter is cool and Web3 is cool. So we are integrating Web3 and Flutter together. So we will just fast track the application. There are some things that we will be needing. First of all, we will be needing Truffle to be installed globally. So just a single command npm install globally Truffle. So npm install -g Flutter will install Flutter globally. Okay. So after this, what we're going to do is, let me just start with my code over here. So I'll just minimize this over here, and okay, just let me minimize this also, taking this screen from here. I think it is visible and the font is also visible. Yes. So this is the project which we are creating right now. Okay. And in this project, it is a starter project, and I will give you the link of this project. And it is a basic to-do application. So it will have two screens. One is home screen that will, just let me make it full. Yes, over here. Yes. One is home screen, in which we will see all the to-do items that we are going to add in this. Second screen will be a add to-do screen, where we will be adding the tasks, or let's say our reminders, or whatever we want. And this over here is what is the most important folder. So now you won't be having this contract folder if you will download my starter project. So we are going to open the terminal, and over here we will run, or first we will navigate to our contracts folder like this, and we will just create or initialize Truffle inside it. So the command is Truffle init, and once we init the Truffle, it will create, okay, it will create these folders inside. So for starters, I'm going to hit a N over here, but you can just create yes and create all those folders. Okay, So I have created this. So we have this contracts folder over here, and inside contract folders we have extra folders. So let me get you through this extra folders over here. So this contract folder contains all the smart contracts. So there is migration SOL, or SOL means solidity, which is present. The to do contract is not present, that we will be creating. Then we have this migration, which deals with all the migration scripts that Truffle handles and communicates with Gnash. Then we also have a Truffle over here. We also have a Truffle config.js. It is a Truffle configuration file over here. Okay, so now we have done this. So we have to create a to do contract.sol. .sol means solidity over here, and this is our smart contract that we will be used to communicate with our blockchain. So you can just copy this, and actually it is present in the starter pack. Okay, it is present in the starter pack, and this is the license that we need, and we are importing the solidity version from 0.4.22 to 0.9.0 in between this. And we have created a contract here, and I've named it as to do's contract. Okay, because we are going to create a to do app. Now we are first going to create a value which will hold all the count of the to do's that we have. So if you have 1 or 2 or 3, whatever to do's we have, we are going to hold the count over here. Okay, and then we are going to create a struct. So I don't think that I have to explain you what a struct is, but it is kind of a data structure which holds the data in what kind of data that we need. So we are going to create a struct of to do's, and it will take an uint. So uint is kind of undefined integer. Okay, so it is not defined. So it has a bit size of 256, and we are going to store our ID over here. Then we also need a string value, which will be a to-do title, because we need a title for our to-do list. Then we need a string about the category. So will it be a fun game activity, or will it be a school activity, office activity, etc. Okay. We also need a timestamp, because when the activity was created, it was created in the afternoon, evening, and what is the due date. So depending on that, we will need the timestamp of the activity. So next, we are going to map all these to-dos into a public to-do account. Okay, so we are mapping it over here, and below this, we are going to have created a constructor. Okay, it is a public constructor which is setting the to-do count to 0, and we have created some event. Now this event are public, what we say, this event are fully customizable. You can create an extra event, but taking some of the common events in the mind, I've created this. First is to do added, when our to do in the event list will be added. Okay, it takes the ID. Then is to do deleted, when we want to delete a to do that we have added into the list. And the third event, which we're not going to use but I've actually created, is to do edited. For example, you have created a to do item in the list and you want to edit it, maybe it's spelling, or you want to change it, or you want to add something, then you can edit it over here. Below is a function. Okay, so now these are the functions, and this just takes a to do count function, and we just add all the data of the items over here. For example, the count, the title, the category, the timestamp, etc. Okay, and coming down, so this count means the ID. Okay, we are sending this ID over here like this. Okay, and we are going to emit the to do added. Now what emit does in Solidity, emit is kind of a return function, like we usually return in Dart, right? So this emit will return this function, and with this return we can communicate with our blockchain server. Okay, and over here we are increasing the increment value of to do count. So this is our add to do function. Okay, then this function is the delete function, where emit to do delete ID, we are just deleting it from here. Then we have the edit function over here, which will edit the to do that we have added. Okay, it takes a UNI to 256 ID, it takes a string memory to do title. Now there is this new keyword memory, which I will explain further when we go into the next screen of our application. Okay, so this is done over here. I hope you are clear with these topics over here. We have done. Now what we have to do is you have to compile this smart contract. Okay, without compiling, we cannot work this contract. So to compile, what we have to do, we are going to come to terminal and into our contracts folder, we are going to just write a command called as truffle compile. Okay, over here, and let's see it works properly. Yes, see, now there is no error over here. We got compiled successfully using this commit. This is the latest solid that we have used. Okay, and when we run the following command truffle compile, a new folder over here was created in contract. You can see build contract, and there is migration.js, which is a JS folder over here, and there is to do contracts.json folder. Sorry, JS folder over here. Okay, JSON folder. So these folders, they have the data and the properties that we are going to need and we will be using. For example, inputs, to do edited event. Okay, and we can explore them a bit, but it will be time consuming. So right now you can just remember that they are just JSON values or just project samples that we need. Okay, this is very important, the API that we are going to use it in further. Okay, so I'm going to close this over here. Now what we have to do is, now we have to create a migration directory over here which is already present, and in this migration directory you can see you will be having one initial migration. Now what is this migration? Like, we have created contacts over here, right? But we have to migrate those contacts from our local server over here to our Gnash server which we will be using. Okay, so we will have to migrate them. So how we'll migrate them is, first we'll have to create a to do contract migration over here. So I have written it, so I will just uncomment this. It is normal JS file, const to do contracts artifacts require to do's contract. Now this should match over here. If it doesn't match, then it would create a problem. Okay, so this should be type sensitive. So we are okay here. So we have created this module over here which we are going to export, and we are going to deploy our to-dos contract. Okay, so let's get with that. So before we export them, we have to open Ganache. Okay, so this is Ganache. You can download them and you can start it, and you will be seeing that we have the balance of ETH. We have 100 balance over here, and this is a server on which the Ganache is running. This is the network ID. Okay, so if our Ganache is running very nicely, then we can minimize and come back to our we have to come back to our terminal, and over here we will migrate. So the command is simple, truffle migrate. Okay, and this will help in creating the migration that we're going to need. So you can see there was no error over here. Both the migration took place, initial migration and to do migration. Okay, both the migration took place. And now getting back to our Ganache over here, you can see first it was 100, but now it is 98. So we have used some of the ETH balance that we require. Okay, why? When we migrated. Okay, when we migrated our contracts. So minimizing this over here, we have migrated it. Now let us come back to our contacts.build, and this we have to import the file into our pubspec.yaml. So let me come down over here. We will open our pubspec.yaml file, and let me just scroll down. Yes, this to do contract JSON, we have to import it. So I have just imported it, and when we import it, we have to run flutter pub get, right? Okay, we have done. apart from this, we have also imported few of the packages. Let me show you what we are going to use. So we are going to use a WebSocket channel, okay, to create a WebSocket. We are using a Web3 Dart package over here to have our connection with Web3. Then we are using HTTP package. We are using provider to have our change notifier. Then to just create some time and date formatter, I'm going to use this package and Cupertino icons that we get complementary with our application that I usually don't use. Okay, so coming back to our to-do controller that we have to create now. Okay, why? Because we will need a controller to create our application, because we have done linking our smart contracts by truffle migrate. Okay, and we have migrated them. So now we need a controller. So I'm going to command A and uncomment this everything. Okay, and let me come from the start. So we are going to use this RCP URL, but before that we extended our to-do controller to our change notifier. Okay, then we have created a list of to-dos that we created a module over here. Let me minimize this contract. Yes, so we have module over here. So this is a module that we created, which takes a string ID, string title, string category, and date time created. Then we have created our constructor. From this constructor, to do from JSON and map string dynamic to JSON. And this is some dummy data that I have added, which we won't be using, but for your sake, that how we will be creating the data, I have added this over here. Okay, so we are importing this to do module into our controller over here into our controller. Then we need this URL, right? This URL, you will find it over here from our Gnash. So this is the URL that we need, http 127.0.0.1, and this is the port ID. Okay, so we have added this over here with the port. Now we also need a WS URL. So WS URL is the same as our RCP URL, but we just add WS instead of HTTP. Okay, that is the only difference. We need private key. So what is this private key is, whenever we use Nash, we have to get a private key. So you can see this show key button over here, which also has a key symbol. So I will click it over here. I will copy it. Command C, done. I will minimize this because we don't need after this, but it should be running. And I would paste my link, or sorry, my private key over here. And we have created some variables. So first of all, we need a client variable, which has a data type of a Web3 client. Okay. Then we need ABI codes, which is a string value. We need credentials, which will store all our credentials. The Ethereum address, contact address. So deployed contract will be a contract. The contract we will be deploying, okay, because we have created them, but we have to deploy them. And then we have created this functions inside our controller that we are going to use. So contract function to do count, contract function to do's, contract function add to do, and contract function delete to do, edit to do. These were the functions which I showed you beforehand that we created. So we are just creating and we are just creating a variable that will help us to use them. We are going to init the controller over here, and once the controller is init, we are just going to use this init function, which will help us to init the controller. Okay, and this is how we are going to do it over here. Now this Web3 client takes parameters like the RCP URL, which we have created on top. Okay, the socket connector, which will help us to connect with our IO web socket channel, okay, that we will be using with Nash over here. Coming down, we have created some ABI functions. Okay, now what are these ABI functions? So ABI helps us to create a Solidity contract and helps them to merge with our Nash that we are going to use it. This will help us to get the credentials that we have created, and the get deployed contract will help us to get all the contracts, all the smart contracts that we have deployed. So these are the three functions that we are going to need them. Okay, and the Ethereum address that we will need. So the Ethereum address is from JSON API that we get from here. Okay, we decode it, and we have to get the networks, the port that is over here running. If you'll see, network ID 5777 and the address. Okay, so that we will be using it. And in credentials, we will be passing our credentials from private key, the private key that we get over here. Okay, and we will deploy all our contracts that we have created, and a separate contract for a separate file. So over here, if you see, we have all the contracts built over here. Okay, these are all the contracts that we have built. Okay, and we will be deploying them one by one into our Gnash and our Solidity server that we will be using. So coming back over here, and yeah, so these are the functions that we have created. This will help us to get the to-dos that we will be adding over here. This is the function to add to-do, get all the to-do, add to-do, delete to-do, and edit to-do. So these are the functions that we will be needing. Okay, so coming back to our project over here, you can see where to use this project. For that, we will need the front end part, right? So we have created a nice front end over here. If you see screens, home screen, and we will need this delete to do function, and we'll also need a homes function to add. Okay, so over here we will need a function to add our to do list. Okay, but before going ahead, let us check the application. So I will just run my application over here. Let me see if it is running without any errors. There is also a file called as truffleconfig.js. So before running, make sure that you have just added the host, that is 127.0.0.1 over here. Okay, and we also added the port 745. And why is this happening? Okay, fine. Let's just wait for it to run. So you can copy this from our get started package, or you can also just write it down from here. Okay, and if you want to get this port ID and network ID is usually asterisk key, but you can also write 5777, or you can get the host from our Gnash folder over here. Okay, so this is everything that we need, and I'm just taking my simulator which is running now over here. Okay, okay. Let me just stop it again and play it. Yeah. So pods are getting installed. It usually shouldn't take much time due to concurrent builds. Just let me clean my Flutter project. I also have a backup project which I've created. So if this doesn't work, then I will just shift to this project. Okay. This is a to-do backup which I might shift over here. The same project. So just let me hit the play button over here. Yeah, this is working. Thank God. Whew. Okay, yes. So now I've got this error. So what happened is the key that I've used was the previous key. So just let me update the key over here. So I'll be coming back on top over here. I will open my Gnash. I will copy this key from here. Command C. Okay. I will change the key. Okay. I will navigate my project. I will pause it. I will open my terminal and I will go to CD contracts and I will run truffle migrate because I have to migrate my new contracts again. And I have already done this, so I'll have to use the reset keyword. But you guys won't need reset. All you guys will need is just truffle migrate. Okay. And now if I play over here, I think now this should work. And I've also added the two functions in this. Basically, what we will do is this will be a add to do async function. So when someone just writes on this and just clicks on the add function, yes. So this is our function. Our application has been loaded completely. So this is a blank screen right now because there is no to do added. So I will click on the plus sign over here and we can see a nice UI where I can add. So over here I will add first first task. I will give let's see home, office, shopping. I just give a fun task and we will add it over here. After adding, you can see, if you'll see over here, adding to do, that means our to do has been added. And if I'll go back, you can see we have our first task over here. So this is the function that we have added. So what this function do is it takes the to do from our list that we have from our controller text, okay, and it takes the ID. The ID I've given is the current milliseconds, okay, for since epoch to string, because I don't think we will have two similar IDs like this. The category is selected category, that is fun, and the title is to do text controller, that is a text, and created at datetime.now. So when we do this, it gets created, the task is sent to our Solidity server in Gnash, and then we retrieve it back in our home screen. So the code in our home screen is as follow. Okay, so we have first created a to-do controller that keeps a track, okay, that we need. We have also added provider, okay, over here to the to-do controller. Then coming back, this is just a small plus button over here, which will a floating button, sorry, which will help us to add the task and to navigate us to the next screen. Okay, like this. Okay, then I have wrapped this in safe area, and coming down, this is just a normal list view, which will help us to get all the tasks. Okay, which will help us to get all the tasks. Now there is no get task function, if you see, because we actually don't need it over here, because when we add our to do, okay, when we add the to do, due to change notifier, it notifies our home screen that there is something in our to do list that we have created, and it updates automatically like this. Okay, it updates automatically like this, and when we click on this red button, it removes the task that we have added. Okay, so you can see how this is working. This is working like this. Okay, so we have used the web3 Gnash, and whenever we are creating any task, you can see the balance is reducing. It was 9.8, now it has become 9.6. So the more we use the balance, the more we create the task, the less balance we are left with. But this is a trial local server, so we have unlimited kind of ETH balance. So there won't be an issue. But when we'll upload this to the live server, that time you'll have to make sure about the balance that you have, or you'll have to buy extra balance over here. So this is what we have done over here, and yes, I think I was able to explain the topic very nicely. There was a small glitch in between about the application. Don't know what was the error, but thank God I had this second backup ready for it. Yes, I think this is done over here. Hey, hi. Hello, guys.
Oh, hey. Hi again,
Hey,
Shri.
hi. Yes,
Well, that
yes,
was
yes.
quite an abrupt end. I couldn't tell if you were done with the presentation or not. But then, nonetheless, it was amazing. It was wonderful. A lot of people were waiting to see how DApps work. And I think you
Yes.
have given them everything that they wanted, which is
Yeah,
wonderful.
because actually explaining a topic kind of DApps in 20 minutes is kind of hard task
Hmm.
to do it, because there are some things which are very, very new. Example, solidity and Gnash, and how we create the contracts. So I had to rush a bit fast in these topics.
Hmm. Well, that's always great. I mean, I know this can get quite vast, and we can also explore a lot of other things here. So you're
Yes,
always,
yes.
welcome back anytime when you're ready to explore this even more with our viewers, and we can probably take this up in another session at another meetup, the next one probably that we will have, and we would love to have you here. Uh,
Yes.
well, for the time being, there were a lot of questions that came in while you were presenting your presentation,
Yeah.
and most of them were answered by the community themselves. So that is a great, wonderful thing to see. There's only one question
Okay.
that Sanjul has. He wants to ask if the blockchain that you've hosted is centrally hosted or is it peer-to-peer?
No, see, right now the blockchain that we have used is locally. It's completely locally, just for our local server. We haven't
Hmm.
hosted it anywhere. So the Gnash that we use, it creates a local blockchain virtual environment, and we run our application in that.
Right. Right. Well, I hope Sanjul, that was a pretty easy, pretty short answer. But yeah, Sanjul, I hope that answers your question. If there's anything else, uh, you can
But
always
what we can do is
leave the question.
we can actually create a P2P server where the to-dos can be shared in different screen, or with different people that we want, creating a central system for our to-do apps.
Hmm. Hmm. Wonderful, wonderful. Anyway, Sridhar, I guess we'll just move on with the show. And thank you so much for presenting your talk. And of course, we'll see you towards the end of the event again. So
Yes,
thank
yes.
you
I
so
hope
much,
it was
Sri,
a good
and
talk.
see you again.
Yes.
All right, guys. We have found ourselves a little behind schedule, which is well, not really great, but of course, we'll try to move on with it as fast as we can. And this is now the final talk of the day. And I would like to take the pleasure of introducing our final speaker, Majid Hajan, with us on stage. Uh, so I guess Majid is here with us. Majid, are you here?
Good
Can you hear
morning.
us?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. We're not able to see you particularly.
Okay, something is wrong. Just give me a second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you continue speaking and I'll fix it.
Oh, okay, no problem. I could just see a still image of you. So I also understand it's super early for you right now, and since we are behind a little bit behind schedule, we kept you waiting for a long time, which I'd like to apologize for. But we are here now, and for you, ladies and gentlemen, Majid is of course an all-rounder. He is a Flutter community leader. He himself is a GDE, and he runs a very successful YouTube channel, where he does endless collaborations with devs and builds amazing things. He is the organizer of Flutter Vikings, which is an event chain that I personally have taken so much inspiration from. And he also does tons of Twitter spaces. If you have happened to join one, I have happened to join a couple of them, and they're just brilliant. So Majid, I had a question for you actually. Is there anything that you do not do amongst all of these
What
things?
I what what not to do?
Yeah, I
What did
mean,
you ask?
yeah, I mean, because you do so many things, right? You're running a YouTube channel, you do Twitter Spaces, you're building communities, leading them, events, so many
Okay.
things. Is there something that you do not do?
When something is becoming your passion, then you do everything that you can, right? So
Actually,
that's the
true.
things.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of things that I want to do and I don't have time to do. So wish me luck.
You have. Yeah, I wish you all the best. Anyway, so Majid, I'll leave you with our viewers and take it away.
Yes, let's get it started because I have a bunch of things to explain. Let's talk about PWA or Progressive Web App in with Flutter and see. I have some new stuff that I have not presented yet, or maybe I've done once, and it's some ideas that I've been working on it. Hopefully, I give you some ideas today, and hopefully, I can inspire you to go and read more upon it. It's a bit early morning for me, to be honest, and this is the first time I'm giving a talk like at around 8 a.m. So wish me luck, and that's why maybe I'm not still very like awake much, but I got some coffee. Hopefully that helps. Let's move on. I will speak very fast. I already sorry for that because it's a lot of things that I need to cover, and I was supposed to have a demo, but because we're kind of short in time, so I need to cut that live demo. So hopefully you can go and check out the source code later yourself. But let's move on to the talk. First thing we want to talk for sure is that you probably all of you, because you're all Flutter enthusiasts, right? So you've seen many of these examples, which I don't need to show you anymore again. So let's save some time and go to the main topics. You see that we can do a lot of stuff with Flutter, but Flutter Web particularly is really good for creating a single page application mostly, or converting that to a progressive web app, or basically the apps that you have like a mobile application. It's behind the login authentication, like a dashboard style, and then you want to actually have your user also use a web version of that, right? So in this talk, we're going to talk about quickly to just be on the same page, progressive web app characteristic. We're going to talk about service worker and web app manifest, how Flutter is taking advantage of these two technologies to build progressive web app. And at the end, how you can extend service worker for Flutter application, which you can do a bunch of more advanced patterns, which is not supported by Flutter itself, but you can do that. So I was introduced very well for sure. My name is Majid, and I am a Flutter community leader and do a bunch of things for Flutter and and communities in general. And I'm also a passionate software engineer, just like you. My role at the moment is solution architect in Norway, one of the countries. You can find me on internet, perhaps if you search my name or find this handler. I'm almost everywhere. You can find me everywhere. Let's be in touch if and have more conversation later together. So he talked about Flutter Vikings. It's coming 3rd and 2nd of February, like around 10 days. Spoiler alert: we're gonna have so many cool stuff. Make sure that you're joining because or you grab your free ticket. We're gonna have a 3D, a virtual space, networking, and a bunch of things that you have not probably seen in online conferences. That's the first time, at least in Flutter community, I'm doing this. So hopefully you will enjoy it. But let's talk about PWA. PWA are known as reliable, fast, engaging web application, where they are resonating with native application. They're like giving the user native experience. For example, a feature like offline capability of a web application, which always was a case for mobile application, but now you can do it together with service worker and cache storage. You can do it with with PWAs. There are a bunch of APIs, the JavaScript APIs or browser APIs that you can also use in PWAs. Like you can connect even to hardware such as USB and Bluetooth, BLE, and stuff like that. So it's a lot of things that you can do with PWAs. They are fairly popular and powerful. So, but two important aspect of that. I think I'm freezed again. Oh, now I'm back. So, two important aspect of PWAs, or like the main skeleton of the PWAs, are service workers and web app manifests, right? So let's talk about service worker. A service worker is actually a background a script that is running in the browser. It's acting like a proxy. So it's just like sitting between your application and network or cache. Whenever a request or response goes and comes, you can catch an intercept and actually do something with it. And it comes with a life cycle. It comes with an installer life cycle, and then it becomes active where you can, for example, clean up your cache and do some stuff over there. And then it goes to idle. Then you can listen to events such as fetch and background things and things like that. So this is purely JavaScript things, right? So you generate a JavaScript file, a service worker file, where you can listen. If you have done any JavaScript before, you must be familiar with add listen event listener. So you can listen to install, active, and fetch events, for example, and do something with it. And here is an example. You need to definitely use fetch API in order to be able to fetch or catch or intercept the request and respond in service worker. So that's very important. And Flutter does that behind the scenes for you. So you don't need to worry about that part. So let's talk about caching API. So in Service Worker, you have a cache storage that you can open with some kind of name, and then you can actually add static assets or request and respond to this cache. So this is very powerful API that is provided in the browsers. So in fact, if you have a fetch the request, for example, this is just purely, service worker script right now. So you can actually intercept your request and respond with something. So you can manipulate your request. This is very important to understand that you can manipulate your request. That's the power of service worker. So, and one of the things you can do is different cache strategy. You can say, hey, whenever a request, I'm requesting like a CSS file, I'm requesting a JavaScript file. Whenever this request comes, well, cache only strategy is one of the strategies. You can say, hey, can you just always match my request from the cache and return that? You don't go over network anymore. It's just always from cache, right? These are one of the strategies. Or you can do the other way around. You can say, hey, every time I have a request, always fetch. I don't need cache. It's network only strategy. And a bunch of other strategies here. So definitely take your time after my talk, go to the slides, take a look at these examples and see how these strategies work. You have cache pairs falling back for network. You have network pairs. And if it's failing, then you can actually fall back to cache. And you have actually race, you can have also cache with network updates, like every time you can have the newest version of your request to the cache. These are the strategies. So take a look at that and you will learn something from it. Another thing that PWA comes with is web app manifest, right? It's a JSON file. It's a JSON text file where you can define your mostly a UI or theming of your application. So you define your a splash screen, logo, background, name, and theme color and stuff like that. So it can be like a web manifest suffix, or it can be a JSON file where Flutter actually comes with a manifest.json file. You will find it in index under the web folder. So definitely there are a bunch of properties there. It's not a rocket science here, so I don't need to explain all of this. So you can, by even reading these properties, you understand what it does. It's very simple, the app manifest, but you can test this manifest when you have it already in your application. You can open up your application in the browser, go to the application tab. In the manifest tab, you get all of these properties for you. You can see if it's something that you're looking into or not. That's just for debugging purposes. But let's talk about Flutter. We all know that the fact behind Flutter Web is like Dart to JS is kind of taking care of these, possibilities, right? So it's as well. That means you can even write maybe your service worker if you want. You can do a community things, do that, and compile it to JavaScript and open source so that people can use it. But quickly, if you want to explore the web folder, you will see that you're going to have manifest.json, you're going to have index, uh, index.html, for example, where you can find most of the scripting over there. So if you open the index.html, you'll find where Flutter is installing or registering the service worker, and also loading the main Dart.js file, like the main file, the main bundle file for Flutter Web. So here is the script that you will find. Pretty straightforward. It will register the service worker. That the name of service worker in Flutter, if you see in line 1, it's Flutter service worker.js. So this is the name that is automatically created for you. So the scripting over there is automatically generated by Flutter, right? So you have a bunch of things that Flutter will take care of that for you. For example, adding the static assets to the cache for the subsequent reload can be much faster because they're coming from cache. These are the things, or revalidating them, or reactivating the service worker every time you change your application. And all of this stuff is taken care by Flutter, right? I'm not going to talk about this, but what I'm going to talk about is that how you can now leverage or extend these service worker, the service worker that is generated by Flutter, and you don't have any control over it at all. But let's take a look at the service worker file which is generated. Now this is the one that I built. So actually I was supposed to demo this, but we don't, 20 minutes is actually not that much time that I can demo. So that's why I put everything in the slides. So look at this. I built this application under the build folder. Then I have Flutter Service Worker JS, right? So take a look at this file. You see that you have a list of resources. These are the assets that you see with the hash code, which means that if the file is changing, the hash code is changing. Therefore, the cache in the next load will be updated. So this is the way that Flutter is taking care of the caching updates for you, right? So they added all of these, static assets, which is generated for your Flutter web. And the way that it works, that then on install event, which we already talked about it, this is the life cycle of, service worker registration. The first event is install event. Then they're going to actually add these requests to the cache, all of these static assets, right? The resources that you want to load later. And in an activate mode, you see that this is again an auto-generated script by Flutter team that is taking care of deleting the cache and updating the cache in an activate mode. So make sure that when service worker is taking over the page, you already have the updated resources, the assets, and a bunch of other things that Flutter does. For example, if on the fetch request, they are taking care of caching your URLs, for example, whether you are using hash bang strategy or other strategies, they're taking care of, the page, the request of each page, and they're taking care of the caching of those. So the script is fairly simple, and that's why when you're loading your application, a web application, you definitely see an install app. And that's because the Flutter web comes with both service worker as well as the web app manifest. So for those platforms that support installing, service worker on the home screen, for example, Chrome on Mac OS or on Android, so you will see these pop up. You can actually install your application on home screen, and you can even debug a service worker. You see that service worker is taking over, and that's exactly the service worker for this application that I built, right? And if you look at the cache under the browsers, cache storage in application tab in the developer tools for Chrome, you will find your caches that are open and added the request and respond to them by service worker, which is generated again and created by Flutter team, right? So now you can actually read all of these requests and see the response. And that's the reason when you don't have internet, when you second time come to this application, the application will work out of the box. But now how can you extend this service worker? What if you don't want this auto-generated service worker? What if you want to cache your APIs? What if you want to cache your Google fonts? What if you want to cache a bunch of other things that you don't have access to the service worker by Flutter? Well, here is the things. JavaScript environment, JavaScript, PWA in JavaScript world comes with a great library called Workbox. A Workbox.js is a set of tools that helps you to uh, create or generate your service worker like very, very easy. And it's a very powerful tools, right? Well, the first thing that you can do here is that you can install these. You need to have Node and npm. I know like you're using Dart and you may want to write service worker in Dart and stick to the Dart ecosystem. There is no such a things at the moment, but spoiler alert again, I'm working on such a things. Hopefully in Q1 or Q2 2022, we will have a Dart version of this. Hopefully next presentation in a couple of months, we don't need to say npm install. I can say pop get workbox CLI or something like that. Hopefully that will happen. But as of now, we need to stick to the npm ecosystem. Let's install this CLI, workbox CLI globally. If you run then the workbox command line, then you're gonna see that you will have a bunch of ways of generating service worker. You have a wizard way, you have generate service worker, you have inject manifest, which you need to pass some kind of configuration. We're gonna stick to the inject manifest. Let's create our workbox dash config plus swa.js in the root of our Flutter application. This is to JavaScript file, right? And in my workbox config file, I will define what I want to do. Fairly simple. I'm going to say that, hey, my directory that I'm looking into the static assets is build folder. That's after Flutter build is done, right? And then I say, hey, I want all of the JSON fonts. Let's take a look at the file a little bit closer. JSON fonts, JavaScript, WASM file, PNGs, JPEGs, HTML, everything. All these patterns, I want to add them to the cache. And my service worker is located in the root of folder sw.js. My destination is build web service worker. That's where I want to generate my service worker, or workbox can do that. And I can also say, well, add even 10 megabit of WASM file, for example, to the cache. I don't mind, add it. So a limit there. So, well, because I don't want to actually stick to the npm or build pipeline of npm and JavaScript word, I'm going to use import script instead of importing my package locally from npm. I'm going to say import my workbox swjs from HTTP request from Google Storage API. That's a Google things, by the way. So, and then I'm gonna import or I'm gonna actually destructure my pre-cache and route, which is one thing that is coming with workbox. And easiest part is that I can say pre-cache and route, please self.web manifest as a const here. And that's something Workbox will take care for you. The whole things that I've written right now, that will generate after running this command. Let's look at this. Let's see how easy is this library. That will generate entire things that Flutter team is also generating for you for static asset caching. Flutter, you need to first make sure that you do not generate your Flutter web with service worker. And that's for that, you need to pass PW strategy none, where it's going to unregister or remove the service worker file for you. And then you need to run Workbox command line, inject manifest, and pass your configuration, which I just spoke about, right? Then the file, the JavaScript file that you defined in the config file will be generated, and Workbox will automatically detect all the static assets that you defined in the pattern and then add them to the resource, which will be added to the cache in the install event. And every time you do a different, version and the hashing will be different, then it will be updated during the active event. So this part is completely done. Simply you replace this Flutter service worker, but now you have a bunch of other things that you can do. Last thing that you need to do before we move on to the next slide is make sure that in index.html, you replace Flutter service worker.js with sw.js. The sw.js is going to be your generated, your service worker that you are taking care of that. And let's see now what you can do in maybe 1 minute. All the ideas that you can do. Look at this. First, you can add Google Analytics for offline, tracking. So it's simple. It's coming from a Workbox out of the box. You can just destructure it and use it. That's everything is going to be taken care of by Workbox. You can register different routing, because routing means request, right? So that you can register different routing and add routing requests to cache with different strategies. This is the file that I have in my root of Flutter project, right? I can say, hey, I have a Google font. Please add them to cache. I have a fonts.js static. This is something that you cannot do with Flutter Web, but here you can do. You can actually say, this is my origin, add them to cache. I always want these fonts coming from cache. Cache first strategy, but you can also expire them with some threshold, right? So, or maybe you have an API. What if you have a Hacker News API? You can say, hey, this is my Hacker News API. Whenever I call this, that's going to be a GET request. Register this route, add them to cache, to the stories cache, and then you will have a offline version of a stories. If your app doesn't work, like you don't have network requests, the API still will return some response for you from the cache. And maybe a bunch of other things. Maybe you can do a modal, like whenever this is actually something that I've written. You can actually look at this code later. What it does is that whenever there is a new registered service worker, it will show up a pop-up on your homepage of Flutter application and say, hey, a new service worker is registered. Do you want to reload your application? Because you need to reload, that service worker can take over. Then you reload your application, for example, and that is going to simply add the service worker, which is taking over the whole pages. These are the things that is hard to do, like with the built-in feature of Flutter. Or you can even pass messages between index.html and Flutter or service worker. You can do a bunch of things here. You can pass something else from the messaging, and then you can do something with that. This is actually the pop-up like you can do. You can definitely make it better and nicer. But this is a pop-up that is coming. It says the new version of application is loading. Do you want to reload? And you can actually do that. And imagine that you are using Navigator 2, which is coming with this nice routing for web, nested routing, child routing, and then you have a bunch of things. You can cache all of them and make your application fully offline. So unfortunately, again, I couldn't have time to just show you a demo, but you will get definitely an access to the slides and some source codes that you can go and check it out. By now, you know the fundamentals of PWA, some strategies, service worker manifest, and caching strategies, and you also know how you can remove a built-in Flutter service worker and replace it with some service worker that you can take it over and do whatever you want with that service worker. Be careful, service worker is powerful, but at the same time, it can be dangerous. So caching, that is one of the hardest things in computer science, right? So always be careful what you're doing. Test a lot before you ship to your customer. So with that said, here is the slides. So you can go to my slides.com/myhandler, MHA Daily. You'll find all of my slides, including this one and other PWA talks, as well as Flutter talks. So you can find all of them, take advantage of all of them. And you can also find source code under my GitHub. I have a bunch of examples for that. You can find them on my GitHub. Again, same handler on GitHub. And here's my Twitter if you want to keep in touch. Any question, I'll be happy to answer. And I think I'm right on time, hopefully. I spoke very fast. I'm sorry for that. But that is mostly for inspiration. So hopefully I inspired you to go and take over your service worker and take advantages of that.
Well, you think I'm pretty sure about the fact that you've inspired a lot of people who are watching you today to go ahead and build things and try this new thing out. Uh, Thank you so much for that, Majid. It was wonderful to
No
hear you
problem.
speak and to hear you share all of this cumulated knowledge that you did with our viewers today. While you were delivering the presentation, we did have one question that came in. So Sanjul is asking whether the manifest follows the device theme for background color, which is dark mode or light mode.
As far as I know, it doesn't. You need to define it. There are some properties that you can actually define in manifest. I don't remember that. You can search for it, but I know that you can make it adaptable. That is possible.
Right. Well, Sanjul, I hope that answers your question. I think we need to look into this a little bit more, and we shall do that. Majid, thank you so much for talking to us today and taking out the time to do this. I know it's super early and super probably way before your morning coffee, at least. I hope you've had your coffee though. Uh, but thank
Sure.
you again. Thank you so much. And I would love it if you would stay here with me to close this session out. But if it's too early for you, I understand.
Yeah, we can close it together. That's
No,
okay.
wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So I'd just like to request all of our other speakers to join me on the screen as well. Let me see who we have here. Pushkar is here. Uh, Ashwin is also here. 2 thumbs up. Shri is also here. And where is my fellow partner in crime? Rishabh is also here. So, folks, I present to you the entire lineup for today's event. It was awesome. It was amazing. Thank you to all of you guys for taking out the time and talking to all of our viewers. I'd like to thank all the viewers for being patient and sitting with us. And I hope you've had a lot to learn today and a lot to understand. I hope you've been inspired and you've been pushed enough to try out new things and do your bit and do your part into increasing this awesome community that we have, and it's just so amazing. Rishabh, would you like to share any final words with our viewers before we close this session out?
Yes, yes. So all the viewers, so all the speakers gave their talks very intelligently, and we had a lot of, knowledge which was accumulated throughout. And I hope our viewers enjoyed the same. We always try to deliver the best.
That is absolutely true. On point. Thank you so much for that. A big round of applause for you, all the speakers, for being with us today. A big round of applause for all the viewers, and especially a big round of applause for all the people who have been working tirelessly backstage. Rishabh, Shweta, Maheshwari, Bhushan, and everybody else who's been working tirelessly for all these past months to make this event happen. A big thank you to all. Uh, Before we officially close, just a few lines that I would like to say to everyone is that the pandemic is not letting up. I mean, of course, things have become a little bit normal, but we are not there yet. So I think it's important to remember to Take care, be safe, take all the precautions that you have to, be vaccinated, most importantly, and of course, be kind and be mindful of others, and be kind to each other. uh, be nice, and of course, we have a brilliant community that we're building, and we'd love to take it even further. 2022 is the year for Flutter, and we're going to look forward to a lot of new things, and hopefully in our next meetup we'll talk about those new things. And so with that, thank you guys, thank you very much for being with us today. I would just, so here's a little bit of something. So when we used to do this in person, right, when we used to do this in a physical space, we used to always take this one quick photograph with everybody just for the archives. But since we are not able to do that now, uh, I think we'll have to make do with a little screenshot, if I may. So I'm just going to give you a small cue, and I'd like you guys to throw a small pose, and we'll just keep one for the record. Is that good? Brilliant. All right. So I'm getting ready with the screenshot, and 3, 2, 1, Flutter. All right, we have it. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you again. I hope you guys have the rest of the weekend. I hope it's amazing for you. Take your rests. Make sure you guys relax, rest up, and get ready for the new week. And once again, thank you so much, and have a wonderful, wonderful one. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
See you
you so
next time.
much.
Thank you.
See you
Thank
next
you.
time.
Thank you
Bye.
very much. Yes. Bye bye.